What if the mightiest warrior at Troy fell not to an enemy's blade, but to his own shame? This is the story of Ajax the Great, a man so strong the gods themselves feared what he might become, and so proud that pride became the very thing that destroyed him. Ajax was the son of King Telamon of Salamis, and from boyhood he was unlike any other man. He stood a full head taller than his fellow soldiers, built like a wall of living bronze. And when the call came to sail for Troy to fight in the great war for Helen, he answered without hesitation. He wanted one thing above all: to be remembered as the greatest warrior the Greeks had ever sent to war. But Ajax did not stand alone in this war. Among the Greeks was his cousin Achilles, a golden, quicksilver warrior whose speed and fury made him legend even before the war began. The two men respected each other deeply. Achilles, the swiftest blade in Greece; Ajax, the unbreakable wall that never fell back. By his side always was Teucer, his younger half-brother, a masterful archer whose arrows never missed their mark. Where Ajax fought with brute, unstoppable force, Teucer fought with patience and precision, and the two brothers trusted each other with their lives. Commanding the entire Greek army was Agamemnon, king of Mycenae, a proud and powerful ruler who held the fate of every soldier in his hands. It was Agamemnon who decided who received glory, who received treasure, and whose name would be honored above the rest, a power that would later matter more than anyone yet realized. There was also Odysseus, a much smaller man than Ajax, but one whose weapon was his mind rather than his muscle. Clever, persuasive, and endlessly resourceful, Odysseus would become Ajax's quiet rival, a man who could win with words what Ajax could only win with strength. Across the field, defending the city walls, stood Hector, the noblest prince of Troy, a warrior so honorable that even his enemies admired him. He led the Trojan defense with a calm courage, and one day fate would bring him face to face with Ajax himself. And watching over the war from far above was Athena, goddess of wisdom and battle strategy. She favored the clever and the cunning, and though she rarely showed herself, her hidden influence would one day shatter Ajax's entire world. Finally, there was Tecmessa, a Trojan noblewoman taken captive after Ajax raided her homeland. In time, she became his companion, bore him a son, and grew to love him deeply, the one person who saw the gentleness hidden beneath his hardened armor. For 9 long years, the war dragged on outside the walls of Troy. Neither side could break the other, and the soldiers on both sides grew exhausted, homesick, and desperate for the war to finally end, one way or another. Then Hector, sensing an opportunity, led a furious charge that pushed the Greeks all the way back to their ships. Panic spread through the ranks, and for the first time, it seemed the Greeks might actually lose the war entirely. The Greek commanders needed a champion brave enough to face Hector in single combat, but one by one, the bravest men hesitated, all except Ajax. When the lots were drawn to choose a challenger, it was Ajax's name that came up, and he stepped forward without a trace of fear. The two champions met on open ground between the armies, watched by thousands from both sides. Ajax with his massive shield, Hector with his speed and skill. It was a duel that would decide far more than a single fight. They fought for hours, trading blows that would have killed lesser men, neither able to gain the upper hand. As the sun began to set, heralds from both sides finally stepped in to stop the fight, declaring it too close to call. In a rare moment of respect between enemies, Ajax and Hector exchanged gifts before parting ways. Hector gave Ajax his own sword, and Ajax gave Hector his war belt, a gesture of honor between two great men. Neither knew that Hector's sword would one day play a terrible role in Ajax's fate. But the peace between the two armies did not last. Soon after, a bitter quarrel broke out within the Greek camp itself. Agamemnon had taken a captive woman that rightfully belonged to Achilles, insulting his honor in front of the entire army. Furious, Achilles refused to fight another day of the war. Without their greatest warrior, the Greek lines began to crumble. Hector pushed forward once more, this time setting fire to the Greek ships themselves, threatening to strand the entire army on foreign soil with no way home. In that desperate hour, it was Ajax who stood alone against the flood of Trojan soldiers, defending the burning ships almost single-handedly. His shield became a wall no enemy could pass, and for that single day, he became the last hope of the entire Greek army. Desperate to help without breaking his vow, Achilles allowed his closest companion, Patroclus, to wear his own armor and lead the counterattack instead. But Hector, believing Patroclus was Achilles himself, struck him down in battle, a death that would change everything. Consumed by grief and rage over his friend's death, Achilles finally returned to battle, no longer holding back for any insult or pride. He hunted down Hector himself, and in a duel far more brutal than the one Ajax had fought, Achilles struck him down before the very walls of Troy. The greatest warrior fell. With Achilles dead, chaos erupted around his body as both armies fought desperately to claim it. It was Ajax who fought through the enemy lines and hoisted his fallen cousin onto his shoulders, carrying him to safety, while Odysseus fought off the pursuing Trojans behind them. Back at camp, Achilles was given a hero's funeral, and his magnificent divine armor, forged by the god Hephaestus himself, was left behind as the greatest prize any Greek soldier could ever receive. And so a new question arose that would divide the entire army. Who deserved to inherit it? Ajax believed the answer was obvious. He was Achilles' own cousin, the strongest warrior left alive, the man who had saved the ships from fire and carried his cousin's body from the battlefield with his own hands. To him, the armor was not just a prize, it was proof of everything he had sacrificed. But Odysseus argued for it too, claiming that his cleverness had saved just as many lives as any sword or shield ever could. Agamemnon, unwilling to simply choose himself and risk the fury of whichever man lost, decided to let the matter be settled by a vote among the Greek leaders. On the night of the vote, Odysseus spoke with all his famous cunning, weaving a case built on words and wit that swayed the gathered leaders one by one. Ajax, a man of action rather than speeches, stood mostly in silence, trusting his deeds to speak for themselves. He had lost everything. For Ajax, this was not simply a lost prize. It was a public declaration that his years of blood and sacrifice meant less than clever words. In a warrior culture built entirely on honor, this humiliation cut far deeper than any wound he had ever taken in battle. Consumed by rage and shame, Ajax retreated to his tent that night, his mind spiraling into darker and darker thoughts. He decided that the men who had humiliated him, Agamemnon, Menelaus, and Odysseus himself, deserved to die for what they had done to his honor. That very night, driven by fury, Ajax rose in secret and set out to slaughter the men who had wronged him while the camp slept. But watching from above, the goddess Athena saw what he intended, and she could not allow the greatest Greek commanders to be murdered in their sleep. So Athena cast a curse of madness over Ajax's mind, twisting his vision so that the flocks of sheep and cattle grazing nearby appeared to him as his enemies standing before him. Blinded by rage and illusion, Ajax began his massacre, believing with every strike that he was finally taking his revenge. All through the night, he hunted and slaughtered the animals, dragging some back to his tent, still convinced they were his greatest enemies. In his shattered mind, he had finally won back his honor. But as dawn broke over the camp, Athena lifted her curse, and Ajax's vision cleared at last. What he saw around him was not his enemies at all. It was a field of slaughtered sheep and cattle, and he alone, standing among the carnage, covered in blood. The horror of what he had done hit him instantly. He had not taken revenge on his enemies at all. He had made himself a mockery, a madman who had murdered innocent animals in the night, while the entire army would soon learn every detail of his shame. Tecmessa, his devoted companion, found him there and rushed to his side, terrified by what she saw in his eyes. She begged him to think of their young son, to remember that there was still love and life worth living for, no matter what shame he now carried. Teucer, his loyal half-brother, soon arrived as well, having heard rumors spreading through the camp. He found Ajax broken and silent, and though he tried to comfort him, he could see something in his brother's eyes that frightened him deeply, a man who had already decided something terrible. In Ajax's mind, there was no path back from this shame. His honor had defined every part of who he was, and now that honor was gone, mocked by his own actions in front of the men whose respect he had spent his whole life earning. He decided, quietly and firmly, that he could not live this way. To ease their fears, Ajax told Tecmessa and Teucer that he intended to walk to the shore alone to bury his sword and cleanse himself of his guilt, a ritual meant to restore his honor before the gods. Relieved, they let him go, believing his darkest hour had finally passed. But Ajax had no intention of burying his shame. He walked to a quiet, rocky stretch of shoreline far from camp, planted the sword Hector had once given him deep into the sand, and stood over it in silence, alone with the crashing waves. In that final quiet moment, he spoke a farewell to the sky, to his home in Salamis, to his father, his son, and Tecmessa, asking that they remember him not for his final shame, but for the warrior he had once been. One fatal choice. It was Tecmessa who found him there, and her grief shattered the morning silence of the shore. She threw her cloak over his body, weeping over the man who had been both her captor and, in time, someone she had come to truly love. Teucer arrived soon after, and the sight of his brother's body broke something in him. He knelt beside Ajax, grieving not just for the loss of a brother, but for the cruelty of a world that could destroy so great a man over a single lost contest. But even in death, Ajax's story was not yet finished. Agamemnon, still furious that Ajax had once plotted to murder him and the other commanders, declared that a man who had planned such treachery did not deserve a proper burial at all. Teucer stood before the entire Greek council to defend his brother's honor, reminding them of everything Ajax had given the army, the ships he saved from fire, the body of Achilles he had carried from the battlefield, the years of loyal service before his one terrible night of madness. Then, unexpectedly, Odysseus himself rose to speak in Ajax's defense. Despite being his greatest rival, Odysseus argued that Ajax had been the bravest man among them, and that his one moment of madness should never erase a lifetime of honor and sacrifice for Greece. Moved by the words of even his fiercest rival, Agamemnon finally relented. and Ajax was given the honorable funeral he deserved as one of Greece's greatest warriors.